Something really interesting about consciousness. And many of you, it's going to take you a while to understand what I'm about to say, but it's one of these things where I promise you, when this really sets in, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, this is a total game changer. If you're trying to get somebody to see something and they refuse to see it over and over again, they're in resistance to seeing something. It is not possible, if somebody is in that state, to force them to see something. It doesn't matter how much proof you parade in front of them. You have one option, and that's to deal directly with the resistance they have to seeing in the first place.
This was by far one of my favorite clips that I've done thus far, because it's a key part in communication that we fail to recognize. A lot of times when you're having a conversation and you're trying to explain, or you're trying to teach, or you're trying to justify a reason, or even just share your perspective, most of the time when we're talking, our expectation of the other person is immediate comprehension. Anything short of that tends to fall with judgment and a lot of thoughts to something being wrong with the other individual due to their lack of understanding. We rarely assume responsibility for their lack of understanding. We tend to project that in their situation, I've been clear, I've explained thoroughly, and you should have gotten this. And when she is talking about consciousness and saying that no matter how much you speak, no matter how much evidence you give, if they're in a refusal to see something, then it's nothing you can force or change. That's something that has to really resonate within your body, within your mind, when you're having a conversation with another individual. You may be initiating communication. You may be trying to convey a specific point. But what you don't realize is you literally have no control what they're going to consume, how they're going to consume it, whether or not there will be full comprehension and understanding, whether or not they will make it a part of who they are and their character and take that as a representation of who they are and move forward, or they will reject it and say, this is nothing that I want to use in my life going forward. And we tend to let that make us upset. We tend to let that make us argumentative, when in reality, I would hope that you want someone who thinks for themselves. Understand that your beef with that, or it putting you back, or putting you in a mind state to feel like you are now at a higher point than they are because of their lack of understanding, it can create so much miscommunication just from not accepting the fact that when you're trying to propose a perspective to another person, you have to then sit back and let their mind work. You have to allow them to think. Some of these people don't think at all. Some people think about surface-based things. Some people aren't concerned with depth. Some people are only focused on what they're interested in and what they want to put energy into. Some people like to develop their own thoughts, their own concepts, and be left with perspectives for them to think about and marinate on, find evidence, research, and determine their way of thinking in relation to a particular context or topic on their own. And these people are out there. People don't need to walk around and say, this is how I learn, this is how I absorb information. Of course, it would be helpful, but most don't. So we have to be responsible within our own self to understand that the best I can do is give you information. The best I can do is tell you what I see. The best I can do is tell you what I understand. And if you are willing to have a conversation, you will inquire, you will summarize, you will come back to me with conversation, asking me for whatever information you need to make this concept whole for you in your mind. A lot of times we need to be able to understand that when a person asks you a question, they are filling in gaps within their own logic, within their own thinking. So you being outside of them cannot dictate What is a silly question? What is the questions that they already know the answer to? What they're able or should be able to make sense of because you're able to make sense of it. All of those things have to be removed from conversation, because at that point you are projecting. You're projecting intelligence, you're projecting understanding, you're projecting complexity, you're assuming experiences that they have supposedly had to put them in a position to arrive at such conclusions. Everybody's journey is different, and because our journeys are different, the understandings and clarity that we arrive at are in connection with our experiences, our ways of thinking, not to mention our pathology, our morals and values that have been dictated by the people who have raised us. Our lenses that we look through are not the same. So even though the lenses that we look through are not the same, we still look at the world as we are as individuals, not as the world is that we have agreed upon. We really need to take that into consideration, because that will limit the boxes that we put each other in, the expectations that we hold each other to, and really just say, this is what I'm trying to communicate to you. And I would hope that you would give it some thought and maybe pursue the conversation a little further, but don't try and control their understanding. Don't try and dictate who they are in their moments of processing their information. They have to figure it out on their own. Their wheels need to turn. They have to ask questions and develop curiosity to pursue additional knowledge for the clarity of themselves. Sometimes we explain things to people and it's so over their head that they can't even fathom what you're trying to say, because they don't have the experience in their life to even compare it with, to make it understandable for them. And if we don't know how they learn, if we don't know how they understand, if we don't know how they've been taught, it's very easy to miscommunicate. So step back off of that frustration and understand that if a person is refusing to consume something, they're having difficulty with their level of understanding. They don't want to understand it at all, or they may perceive something is happening to them altogether. For any of those reasons, once you have gotten what you have to say off your chest, the rest is out of your control. So allow them to do what they will do with the information you provided. Hope that they will come to you for clarity if they have any questions, or it's pushing them into a place to where they feel like they haven't been honored or they feel misunderstood, and then wait for them to pursue the conversation further. But understand it is a control issue when you are trying to have a conversation and then also dictate the responses, dictate the understanding, the timing of understanding, and more. You can't play both sides of the conversation. What you have to do is talk, listen, and understand, and wait. Peace.